I'd been reborn as a background character in one of those overused power fantasy novels. To make it worse, I was a screenwriting major. On my first day of class, I got called out by the story's main villain. A woman so beautiful, she could have been a weapon, and completely out of her mind. Professor Isabel Sterling. She stood at the front of the lecture hall, her sharp eyes locking on me like a hawk's. The corner of her mouth curled into a cold, knowing smirk. My blood turned to ice. My plan was simple. Stay invisible. Keep my head down. Use my knowledge of the plot to quietly make money and survive until graduation. But then I remembered a scene from the novel, near the end, where Isabel kidnaps the protagonist and keeps him locked in her basement. Only this time, the memory felt different. I saw a picture of me hanging on the basement wall, with 2 words scrawled across it in red marker. Mine. When did she figure out I didn't belong in her story? That thought hit me hard as I looked at her. Long, dark curls framing her face, a crisp white pantsuit hugging her like it was tailored by angels, gold-rimmed glasses perched perfectly on her nose. Intelligent, elegant, and colder than a morgue slab. But I knew what kind of monster hid behind that perfect face. Isabel Sterling, the most dangerous, unpredictable, and obsessive villain in the entire book. She was supposed to be the university professor of the story's hero, Leo Evans. When he rejected her, she was destined to snap, lock him up, and kick off the novel's dramatic kidnapping arc. And me? I was just some unlucky extra thrown into this mess. So new that I couldn't even find my dorm without Google Maps. Just a name mentioned once in passing. Ethan Vance. God, if you're up there, I muttered silently. I just want to steal a few blockbuster ideas, make some money, and stay out of trouble. Please don't drag me into this. I sank into my seat in the last row, trying to disappear. As long as I didn't get tangled up with the main characters, I'd be fine. Then she spoke. Now let's discuss the assignment from last semester, she said, her voice cool and smooth, like running water over polished stone. To me, it sounded like a death sentence. Your original screenplay outlines. She started calling on students at random to pitch their ideas. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. Not Leo Evans, I prayed. Please, not me. When she finally said his name, I exhaled in relief. The guy stood up, confident and easygoing, the classic main character energy. Everything was unfolding exactly like the novel. Leo's script had flaws, but it was full of raw creativity that caught Isabel's attention. This was supposed to be their first real interaction, the spark that pulled her obsession toward him. Satisfied that the plot was back on track, I let my thoughts drift. I started imagining my future, rewriting upcoming hit movies, selling them, buying a place in the Hollywood Hills. Yeah, that was the dream. Then, out of nowhere, I felt her eyes on me. That cold, piercing stare. The student in the black mask who looks like he's about to fall asleep, she said sharply. The room went dead silent. 100 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Ethan, my roommate Maze whispered, nudging me. Ice Queen's talking to you. I stood up slowly, trying not to show the panic crawling up my neck. Isabel adjusted her glasses, her eyes like scalpels. What's your name? Ethan Vance, I managed. She repeated it softly, dragging out the syllables. Ethan Vance, tell me, what's your opinion of Mr. Evans's screenplay? My mind completely froze. This wasn't in the book. Originally, she was supposed to critique Leo and dismiss the class, not turn it into a Q&A. I glanced at Leo for help, but he just smiled like everything was fine. Easy for him. He had plot armor. What could I even say? That his script would get stolen later but help him land a Hollywood deal? Yeah, right. I think it's good, I said finally. 3 words. Safe words. A faint smile appeared on Isabel's lips. Good? What about it is good? She started walking toward me, each step echoing on the tile floor. My heartbeat matched the rhythm of her heels. Is it the character development? She asked softly. The plot structure? She stopped right in front of me. I could smell her perfume. Gardenias, sharp and clean. Or, she whispered, is it that you weren't listening at all? I felt trapped, like a mouse cornered by a very elegant, Very patient leopard. Saying too much would get me in trouble. Saying too little would too. Then, an idea hit me. Professor Sterling, I said, straightening up. I believe a truly good screenplay doesn't need a long explanation. If most people hear it and think, that's good, that alone proves it works. I pulled that line straight from some pretentious Reddit thread I'd read years ago. It sounded smart, at least. It's a market-oriented success. High art is admirable, but popular appeal is what keeps the industry alive. Leo's script has huge commercial potential, and that's rare. When I finished speaking, the room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone stared at me like I'd just grown a second head. Everyone except Leo. His eyes lit up with gratitude. Isabel just watched me, her expression impossible to read. Then, after a long pause, she started clapping. Slowly, deliberately. Very well said, she said finally. Clear logic and a fresh perspective. Then she turned and walked back to the podium. After class, she said calmly, Mr. Vance, I'd like you to come to my office. My knees nearly gave out. The bell rang. It sounded like my execution order. Dude, you're a legend, Maze said, clapping me on the back. Going head-to-head with the Ice Queen? You're my hero. I wanted to cry. That wasn't bravery. That was career suicide. Leo came over, grinning. Hey man, thanks for that. You really nailed it. Want to grab dinner tonight? No, can't, I said quickly, waving my hands. Professor's waiting. The last thing I needed was to get buddy-buddy with the story's protagonist. With the enthusiasm of a man walking to the gallows, I made my way to Isabel Sterling's office. The door was slightly open. Come in, she said. I pushed it open and saw her sitting behind a massive mahogany desk, reading a document. Sit, she said, gesturing to the chair across from her. I sat stiffly, like a prisoner waiting for sentencing. Ethan Vance, she said, setting down her papers and resting her chin on steepled fingers. You're not like the other students. My heart skipped. I'm just an average student, Professor. Are you? She said with a soft, humorless laugh. An average student couldn't have come up with that analysis. She stood, walked around the desk, and stopped beside me. Leaning in, I caught the scent of gardenias. Strong, almost suffocating. I find you very interesting, she whispered, her tone both intimate and terrifying. The hairs on my arms stood up. This is a script I've been reviewing, she said, placing a printed manuscript in front of me. I want you to take a look and give me your notes by tomorrow morning. 3,000 words minimum. I looked down at the title page. My blood ran cold. City of Fog. It was the script from the novel, the poisoned project that nearly bankrupted her production company before Leo Evans swooped in to save the day. How did she have it this early? And why was she showing it to me? I felt like I was being pulled into a whirlpool. Is there a problem? Isabel asked, raising a perfect eyebrow. No problem, I stammered, picking up the script. It felt like a ticking bomb in my hands. Well, Professor, I'll get going. Wait, she opened a drawer and pulled out a small tube of antiseptic cream. Your hand, she said. I glanced down. My nails had dug into my palm so hard they'd drawn blood. You were doing it in the lecture hall too, she added. Her powers of observation were terrifying. My scalp prickled as I took the cream. Thank you, Professor. Don't mention it, she said with a faint smile. After all, we'll be spending a lot of time together from now on. I stumbled out of her office, drenched in sweat. Leaning against the hallway wall, I tried to catch my breath. She was activating. The obsessive villain who was supposed to fixate on the story's hero had just found a new target. Me. Because of me, the whole plot was about to spiral into chaos. I didn't sleep a single minute that night. Not because I didn't want to, because I was too terrified. I read City of Fog 3 times from cover to cover. It was exactly as I remembered from the book's plot. A thriller that started strong, full of promise, but completely collapsed halfway through. The second act was a disaster of plot holes, bad character choices, and a finale that made no sense. It was destined to fail and cost Isabel everything. In the original story, Isabel didn't realize how broken it was until they were halfway through production. By then it was too late. Leo Evans had to rewrite it to save her company. And that was how he became her obsession. And now that cursed script was sitting in my lap. She wanted my notes. But what was I supposed to write? If I told the truth, that it was doomed. She'd demand to know how I knew. What would I say? I read this in a novel? She'd have me committed. But if I lied and wrote some vague, flattering nonsense, the project would fail, and she'd think I sabotaged it on purpose. Either way, I was dead, damn it, I muttered, running my hands through my hair. I'm screwed no matter what. Then, an idea sparked. I'd frame my knowledge as professional foresight, not prophecy, expert analysis. I opened my laptop and began typing like a madman. While the screenplay has a polished surface, I wrote, it's built on 3 critical flaws that act like narrative time bombs. The protagonist's motivation is inconsistent and poorly defined. Key discoveries rely too heavily on coincidence. The world building contains a fatal logical contradiction. If these issues aren't addressed, the story will collapse in the 3rd act, leading to total project failure. At the end, I even offered a few possible rewrite directions, just to sound helpful. By the time I finished, the sun was rising. My eyes burned, and dark circles hung under them like badges of exhaustion. I printed the report and brought it to Isabel's office. She sat there, sipping coffee, looking fresh as ever. She didn't look surprised when I dropped the report on her desk. Wait, she said as I turned to leave. My stomach dropped. She picked up my report and began to read. Page after page, her eyes darted, scanning with laser focus. The only sound in the room was the rustle of paper. Each second felt endless. Finally, she looked up. Behind her gold-rimmed glasses, her eyes were shining. Ethan, she said softly. You're a genius. That was the last thing I expected to hear. No, I was just spitballing, I said quickly, my voice cracking. I just wanted to... You were not spitballing. She stood, rounded the desk, and came close, too close. Every issue you pointed out was not only valid, she said, but it cut straight to the heart of the story's failure. You saw things even the professional writers couldn't. I could smell her perfume mixed with coffee, intoxicating and terrifying. And so, she said, her gaze locking onto mine, I've made a decision. From now on, you're my personal assistant. You'll work with me to oversee this project. The world tilted. It was over. I was trapped. Just then, a soft knock came at the door. Come in, she said. The door opened, and in walked Leo Evans, holding a bouquet of roses. Professor Sterling, good morning. His words died. He was staring at Isabel, who was standing so close to me we were almost touching. The posture between them was intimate. Leo's cheerful expression soured. I stepped back to put some distance between us. Professor, I'll just go. Stay. Isabel didn't even look at Leo. Her eyes were fixed on me. She took the roses from his hand, turned, and casually dropped them into the trash can beside her desk. Then, in a flat, bored tone, she said to a stunned Leo, Mr. Evans, from now on, any questions about the script can be directed to Ethan. He's my sole representative on this project. Color drained from both Leo's face and mine. I was too shocked to breathe. The plot hadn't just been derailed. It had been hijacked, blown up, and flung into the sun. Being Isabel Sterling's personal assistant wasn't as bad as I'd feared. It was actually kind of amazing. I didn't have to go to my dull core classes anymore. Isabel arranged a permanent leave of absence for me, citing my involvement in a major academic project. My new office was a cubicle inside the antechamber next to hers, complete with a massive desk and a top-of-the-line computer. My days were reading scripts, writing coverage, and sometimes sitting in on meetings with her. She never criticized my work. If anything, she listened. Really listened. To every idea I had, no matter how wild, and discussed them with me as an equal. That feeling of being respected was intoxicating. What are you thinking about? Her cool voice appeared beside my ear and snapped me back. Isabel had somehow materialized behind me holding a steaming mug of coffee. Nothing, I said, taking it. Thanks, Professor. In the office, you can call me Isabel. She leaned closer and her warm breath brushed my earlobe. My ear went red. Right, Ethan? I stammered, trying to hide my fluster. A tiny, pleased smile touched her lips. The writing team for City of Fog had a strong reaction to your analysis, she said, as she returned to her desk. They didn't like it? I raised an eyebrow. Of course not, she replied dismissively. A pack of arrogant old men. Why would they ever admit a student is more competent than they are? So what happens now? I've already made the arrangements. She tapped her pen lightly on the table. There's a meeting tomorrow. You and I will go together. You can confront them in person. My hand trembled and I slashed coffee across the desk. Me? Confront a bunch of industry veterans? I'm just a student. Not to me. You're not. Her gaze sharpened. You are the one I chose. For a split second, I saw something in her eyes that looked dangerously like fanaticism. The next day, the conference room was so tense you could have cut the air with a knife. On one side of the long table sat the head writer, Mark Peters, a middle-aged man with a comb-over and the smug certainty of someone who's never been told he's wrong, flanked by about 8 other writers. On the other side sat Isabel and me. I was sweating through my shirt. Ms. Sterling, with all due respect, bringing a student in to critique our work is unprofessional, Peters said, firing the first shot. We were writing scripts when this kid was still in diapers. Murmurs of agreement rippled around the table. Isabel stayed calm. She tapped her pen and the room fell quiet. Mr. Peters, she said, voice quiet but steel-edged. If you believe Ethan's report is unprofessional, refute it point by point. Peters flushed red. He couldn't refute it. My analysis had been a surgical strike on the script's weaknesses, but pride kept him from admitting it. The silence stretched and grew awkward. It was my turn. Gentlemen, I said, standing. My voice surprised me with its steadiness. I admit I lack experience, but the quality of a script isn't determined by a resume. It's determined by the words on the page. I looked straight at Peters. My report highlights 3 issues: character motivation, plot contrivances, and world-building inconsistencies. Which one of those do you want to call baseless? Can you honestly say your protagonist betraying his best friend for a woman he met yesterday in Act 2 is believable? I turned to another writer, Mr. Henderson. The murder weapon, the key piece of evidence, conveniently happens to be found by a random pedestrian who then hands it to the police. Don't you think that insults the audience's intelligence? With each point, the writers' faces grew uglier. That's enough. Peters slammed his hand on the table and leapt up, finger trembling as he pointed at me. Who the hell do you think you are? You're a child. You think you can teach me how to write? I'll make sure you never work in this industry again. A direct threat. My stomach dropped. I'd kicked a hornet's nest. A cool hand covered mine. Isabel rose and stepped in front of me, shielding me. Her eyes on Peters were chips of ice. Mr. Peters, she said, dangerously calm. Are you threatening my employee? The man faltered, his bluster deflating. Miss Sterling. I was talking to the kid, he sputtered, but Isabel cut him off. As of this moment, she said evenly, you and everyone on your team are fired. Stunned silence fell. You can collect your things. Get out of my building. She took my hand and turned to leave. At the door, she paused, looked back at the shell-shocked writers, and lowered her voice until it reached every corner of the room. And one more thing, she said. From this day forward, if anyone so much as touches a hair on Ethan Vance's head, they will be declaring war on Sterling Entertainment. I will see to it that they are erased from this industry and from this city. Then she pulled me along and walked out, leaving a wake of ruined careers behind us. Back in her office, I was still trying to process what had just happened. She'd fired her entire writing staff. For me, I finally managed. What's wrong? Cat got your tongue? She asked, releasing my hand to pour a glass of water. I just stared at her. Why? I told you, she said, stepping closer and gently touching my cheek. Her fingertips were cool against my skin. You're mine. Don't be afraid, she whispered, her lips close to my ear. I'll protect you. In that moment, looking into her eyes, I saw the possessiveness there. So intense it felt like a physical force, and for the first time I felt the terrifying, all-consuming nature of her obsession. And God help me, I also felt a strange sliver of safety in it. The consequences of firing the entire writing team hit fast. Production on City of Fog came to a complete halt. The office buzzed with gossip. Did you hear? The boss fired Mark Peters and his whole crew for some college kid. Is she insane? They were the best in the business. Who even is this kid? What kind of hold does he have on her? Walking down the hall, I could feel their stares. A mix of jealousy, contempt, and morbid curiosity. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Maze. Dude, the university subreddit is blowing up. It's all about you and Professor Sterling. They're saying you're her sugar baby. I opened Reddit. The headlines were brutal, shocking. Northwood sophomore seduces professor for career advancement. An inside look at the mystery man who melted the Ice Queen. Attached was a blurry photo of me and Isabel walking into her office building together. It was grainy, but definitely me. Shit, I muttered, locking my phone. Is something wrong? Isabel's voice came from behind me. It's nothing. She plucked the phone from my hand and unlocked it. As she read the posts, her expression turned glacial. The temperature in the room seemed to drop by half. I see. She took out her own phone and made a call. Legal department. My office now. She paused, then added, and get me IT. I want every post on the Northwood subreddit mentioning me or Ethan Vance taken down. Find the IP of the original poster. I want them to understand the consequences of lying. Her tone was calm, the calm of a predator. After she hung up, she looked at me. Are you angry? I shook my head. No, you're lying. She stepped in front of me and tilted my chin upward so I had to meet her eyes. I can see it in your eyes. You care what they think. Ethan, she interrupted firmly. Listen to me. You don't need to care about the opinions of insects. Their words can't hurt you. Her thumb brushed softly against my lips. Because you belong to me. Your reputation is mine. Your body is mine. Your future is mine. Her voice was a soft, hypnotic whisper. Everything about you belongs to me and me alone. Then she smiled, a beautiful, dangerous curve of her lips, which means only I have the right to hurt you. I stared into the mesmerizing, terrifying madness in her eyes and couldn't say a single word. This woman was completely, utterly insane. Over the next few days, I saw the full extent of Isabel's power. By the next morning, every post about us on the subreddit had vanished. The day after that, the student who started the rumor was expelled for gross violations of the student code of conduct. 2 days later, Mark Peters, the writer she'd fired, was publicly ruined when leaks surfaced about his history of plagiarism and workplace harassment. He was blacklisted from the industry overnight. I knew it was all her doing. She had systematically and ruthlessly erased every obstacle, every whisper of dissent. Feeling better now? She asked from her desk, not even looking up from a contract she was reading. I didn't answer. Starting today, you're moving out of the dorms, she announced casually. You'll live with me. What? I shot to my feet. No, absolutely not. And why not? She looked up, her expression calm. The dorms are distracting. My home is quiet. It'll be better for your work. That's not the point. Ethan, she said, standing and walking toward me. Are you refusing me? I backed away until my shoulders hit the cold wall. She placed her hands on the wall on either side of my head, trapping me, the classic cabin pose. I'll ask you one more time, she whispered, her face inches from mine. Are you going to refuse me? Her eyes burned with that same dark, possessive fire. I knew saying no wasn't an option. God only knew what she'd do. My stuff is all at the dorm, I stammered, searching for an excuse. She smiled and pulled out her phone, showing me a picture. It was my dorm room, spotless. All my things were packed neatly into expensive-looking suitcases. As for your old stuff, she added casually, I had it thrown out. From your clothes to your toothbrush, I've already replaced everything. She slipped her phone away, clearly pleased by my stunned expression. Any more questions, roommate? And just like that, I moved into Isabel Sterling's home. It was a sprawling duplex penthouse in the heart of downtown Chicago, with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city skyline. Your room's on the second floor, first door on the left, Isabel said. She'd kicked off her heels and was padding barefoot across the marble floor, her fierce CEO energy replaced with something almost domestic. You can use the study too. It has all the latest equipment. She acted like this was all perfectly normal. I, on the other hand, felt like I'd stepped into an alternate reality. Me, a random college student living in the penthouse of a billionaire media mogul. It was more absurd than any novel I'd ever read. Come here. She was sitting on a massive white sofa, beckoning to me. I walked over and sat stiffly on a separate armchair. She frowned. Sit here. She patted the cushion next to her. Reluctantly, I moved to sit beside her. Her hair was still damp from a shower, and she smelled like clean soap and something floral. She seemed like a completely different person from the intimidating professor. You're going to write the new script for City of Fog, she said. It wasn't a request. Me? I blurted. I don't have the experience. I trust you, she said, her gaze intense. You're a genius, Ethan. Only you can write the story I want to tell. There's no salary? She cut me off. However, she continued smoothly, I'm giving you 30% of the project's net profits. I nearly choked. 30%. For a project with a budget in the tens of millions? That was life-changing money. Why? I asked hoarsely. What do you get out of giving me that much? You, she said simply. Then she reached out and gently took my earlobe between her fingers, her thumb brushing the sensitive skin. I never make bad investments. Ethan. I'm investing in you and I expect a return. Her eyes darkened. I want you. Her voice was quiet, but the words hit me like a physical blow. I was completely stunned. In the days that followed, I slipped into a strange routine with Isabel. It felt like living with the closest stranger in the world. During the day, we worked together on the script in her study. She'd make me coffee, and if I was hungry, she'd cook. Her cooking, I soon learned, was incredible. At night, We went to our separate rooms. Everything was moving in a weirdly peaceful direction. Until one morning, I had pulled an all-nighter trying to finish a scene and had fallen asleep at my desk. When I woke up groggy and disoriented, I felt something cool touch my cheek. My eyes fluttered open, and there she was, Isabel. Leaning over me, her face just inches from mine. She wasn't wearing her glasses, and without them, her eyes seemed softer, larger, almost mesmerizing. She hadn't expected me to wake up. A flicker of panic crossed her face before she composed herself. "Morning," she said, straightening up like nothing had happened. "Morning," I mumbled, sitting up. The air between us felt heavy. "I made breakfast," she said, turning to leave. That's when I noticed the open sketchbook on her desk. The page showed a detailed charcoal drawing of me asleep at my desk. Beneath it, written in elegant cursive, were the words, "Good night, my boy." My heart started pounding. "Wait," I said before I could stop myself. She turned. "Yes?" Looking at her calm expression, something reckless took over me. I walked over, reached up, and gently slid her gold-rimmed glasses off her face. Then, without thinking, I leaned in and kissed her. Her lips were softer than I'd imagined. Cool, with a faint taste of coffee. She froze completely still, like a marble statue. It was over in a second. I stepped back, watching her. Her sharp, composed eyes were wide with shock, a faint blush spreading across her cheeks, so the Ice Queen could blush. For a moment she looked human, almost cute. "Ethan," she whispered. But the rest of her words died in her throat. "Professor," I said with a small smirk, handing her glasses back. "You're blushing." She snatched them from my hand, flustered, and turned away. "You're mistaken," she said coldly, and almost ran from the room. I couldn't help but laugh. After that day, something shifted between us. She stopped keeping her distance. We'd watch movies on the sofa, and she'd lean her head on my shoulder. We'd go grocery shopping and argue about ice cream flavors like normal people. She smiled more often. Real, unguarded smiles. I started to realize that beneath the layers of control and obsession, she was just a woman, lonely and starved for affection. With both of us working on it, the City of Fog script was coming together beautifully. We had perfect rhythm. My ideas and characters, her precision and logic. One evening, I was struggling with a romantic scene between two leads. I put on a classic romance movie, hoping for inspiration. I was completely lost in it when I felt arms wrap around me from behind. "What are you watching?" Isabel murmured, resting her chin near my ear. "Just looking for ideas," I said. Before I could say more, I felt a sharp, light pressure on my neck. She had bitten me, right over my pulse. It didn't hurt, but it was clearly a mark. "Hey, what was that for?" I asked, startled. "I don't like it," she said, her voice soft, almost sulking. "I don't like you watching other women, not even fictional ones." She looked up at me with eyes that were half hurt, half pleading. "Ethan, from now on, can you only look at me?" She looked so vulnerable, like a lost puppy, that something inside me gave way. I turned in my chair, pulling her gently onto my lap. "Okay," I said, meeting her eyes. "From now on, I'll only look at you." A radiant smile spread across her face before she leaned in and kissed me. This kiss wasn't soft. It was fierce, claiming, desperate. By the time she pulled away, I was breathless. Then my phone rang. The sound shattered the moment. It was Leo Evans. I instinctively tried to answer, but Isabel's grip tightened around me. She saw the name flash on the screen and her eyes went cold. She grabbed my phone, declined the call, and blocked the number. When she looked back up, she was smiling, sweetly, almost lovingly. But something dark lingered behind it. "There," she said softly. "No more interruptions. Shall we continue?" Looking into her eyes, I realized the truth. You can't change someone like her. She hadn't stopped being obsessive. She just shifted that obsession entirely onto me. Leo Evans, meanwhile, was having a rough semester. Since that day in her office, Isabel Sterling had completely ignored him. It didn't matter how brilliant his work was. She looked straight through him. When he tried talking about scripts, she told him to ask Ethan. But Ethan was gone. No classes, no replies. His texts stayed on read. It was like I'd disappeared, and the rumors? They were getting worse. Someone claimed they saw me getting into Isabel's Bentley outside a luxury condo. Another said she fired a whole writing team for me. Leo didn't want to believe any of it. The quiet, kind Ethan he knew couldn't be mixed up with a woman like her. Then one afternoon, at a campus coffee shop, he saw us. I was sitting with Isabel, laughing as she fed me a bite of tiramisu. She wasn't wearing her glasses, and she was smiling. Really smiling. Leo froze. The rumors were true. The sight hit him like a punch. A rush of anger and jealousy twisted in his chest. He walked over, face tight. "Professor Sterling." "Ethan." I nearly choked on my cake. I looked up, heart sinking. "Here we go." Isabel didn't even glance at him. Calmly, she scooped another bite of cake and held it out to me. "Open up," she said sweetly, completely ignoring Leo. I gave him an apologetic look and took the bite. Leo's fists clenched at his sides. "Professor," Leo said, his voice tight. "I've always respected you, but I never thought you'd stoop to this kind of unethical behavior." "I'm discussing an academic matter with my student outside of class," Isabel replied coolly, finally bothering to look at him. Her eyes were icy. "Please, explain to me what part of that is unethical." "Discussing academics?" Leo scoffed. "Is that what you're calling this? What would you call it, Mr. Evans?" She shot back, her tone dripping with disdain. "Or do you think I should be discussing things like this with you instead?" The jab hit him hard. "You—" he started, his face flushing red. "Leo," Isabel interrupted, setting down her fork and delicately wiping a smudge of cream from the corner of my mouth. The gesture was effortless, intimate, and devastating. "You should remember your place. You're one of my students, nothing more. You have no right to comment on my personal life." Then she turned her gaze back to me, and instantly her expression softened. "My relationship with Ethan," she said, her voice warm, "is none of your concern." Her words were like a knife twisting in Leo's gut. He looked between us, her calm, me frozen, and his anger seemed to drain away, leaving only defeat. He knew he'd lost. Without another word, he turned and walked away. His shoulders slumped. I watched him go. A strange ache in my chest. According to the story, this was supposed to be his big moment, the hero's turning point. But now he just looked like a broken kid. And somehow I knew it was my fault. "What's wrong?" Isabel's voice cut through my thoughts, laced with sharp jealousy. "Feeling sorry for him?" "No," I said quickly, "just thinking the plot's gotten way off track." "Plot?" she repeated, her eyes narrowing slightly. "What plot?" A spike of panic hit me. I'd said too much. "Nothing. The plot of our script," I said quickly. "The one we're writing." She stared at me for a long moment, studying me like she could see through the lie, but she didn't push it. Still, a chill ran down my spine. I had the feeling Isabel Sterling knew a lot more than she was letting on. The final draft of City of Fog took us 3 months to finish. Together, we'd turned it from a messy story into a tight, suspenseful thriller full of real emotion and sharp twists. Isabel was thrilled. She called in favors, brought in one of the top directors in the country, and signed A-list actors. The project was officially greenlit. As the credited writer, I attended the first table read, standing beside Isabel in a room full of famous actors and producers, watching her command the room with confidence. I felt dizzy. A few months ago, I was just a nobody sitting quietly in the back of a classroom. Now I was the hot new writer everyone wanted to meet, and it was all because of her. After the reading came the celebration dinner. Isabel was the star of the night, surrounded by people raising glasses in her honor. She accepted every compliment with calm, practiced grace. But I noticed one thing: she wasn't drinking. Every time someone offered her champagne, she asked for sparkling water instead. "Why aren't you drinking?" I whispered to her. "Drinking leads to poor judgment," she said with a mysterious smile. Halfway through dinner, she leaned close to my ear. "I want to show you something." She took my hand and led me out the back door, away from the noise and lights of the party. We got into her car and drove for what felt like an hour, leaving the city behind until we pulled up to a large, modern house surrounded by trees. The sight of it made my stomach twist. I knew this house. It was from the book, the place where she was supposed to imprison Leo Evans. What the hell were we doing here? "Come on," she said softly. She led me inside. The house was dark and silent. She guided me through the rooms and down a staircase into the basement. She flicked on a light. I braced myself for something out of a nightmare, but it wasn't a dungeon. It was cozy. There were thick rugs, a big sofa facing a projector screen, and a bar stocked with snacks and drinks. It felt more like a private lounge than a prison. Then I looked at the walls and froze. They were covered in photographs. Dozens, maybe hundreds. All of me. Pictures of me sleeping in class, working at my desk, eating cake at the cafe. There was even one of me changing my shirt in her guest room. The first day I'd moved in. Under each photo was a date, and a handwritten caption in her elegant script, September 5th, 2023. The first time I saw him, my heart forgot to beat. September 20th, 2023. He stood up for me today. My brave boy. October 15th, 2023. He kissed me. I never knew a touch could feel like this. I walked slowly along the wall, my breath catching. A cold dread washed over me. She had been watching me since the very beginning. Do you like it? Isabel whispered, wrapping her arms around me from behind. Her voice was soft, dreamy. It's a gift for you. A secret place just for us. I turned stiffly in her arms to face her. Isabel, when did you know? She tilted her head. Know what? That I'm not from here, I said, my voice trembling. That I'm from another world. That I know this is all a story. The innocence drained from her face, replaced by a slow, knowing smile. So that's what you call yourself, she murmured. Someone from another world. She reached up, gently brushing her fingers along my cheek. What a charming way to put it. Ethan, my love, she said softly, her voice a haunting lullaby. Did you really think your arrival here was an accident? She shook her head slowly. No, I brought you here. I'm the one who tore up that pathetic manuscript and pulled you across worlds to my side. I couldn't breathe. She leaned in, her lips brushing my ear. From the moment I became aware, from the moment I was more than just words on a page, I knew my purpose wasn't to chase some boy named Leo Evans. It was to find you, to love you, to possess you. She smiled faintly. This world, this story, I built it all for you. And you, Ethan. You are my one and only leading man. Her words shattered everything I believed. She wasn't just obsessed. She was self-aware. A character who had rewritten her own story and dragged me into it. This wasn't fate. It was a trap. You don't believe me? She asked softly, reading my expression. She took my hand and led me to the far wall, where a large object hung covered in a black cloth. She pulled the cloth down. It was a painting. An oil painting so real it could have been a photograph. It showed a young man sitting in a messy bedroom, grinning at a computer screen. The young man was me. The room was my room, the one I'd lived in for 20 years back in my own world. And on the computer screen was the webpage of the novel I'd been reading, the CEO's unrivaled domination. I stood there frozen, staring at what felt like the last moment of my old life. Do you believe me now? Isabel's voice came softly from behind me. I turned slowly to face her. Why? Why me? Because, she said, standing on her toes to press a gentle kiss to my forehead, in that cold world made of text, you were the only one. The only reader who, when you reached the part about the evil female villain, left a comment. You wrote, she's actually kind of tragic, isn't she? Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. You were the only one who felt sorry for me. So when I discovered I had the power to break through the walls of my reality, you were the first person I thought of. I wanted you to meet the woman you pitied. I wanted you to understand what my love truly feels like. I stared at her, emotions swirling violently inside me. This entire world-changing event had been triggered by one simple comment I'd written online. Because of 5 small words, the god of this world had orchestrated an interdimensional love story. What about Leo? I asked. An irrelevant NPC, she said with a careless wave of her hand. Without you, maybe I would have been forced to play out my sad, scripted role with him. But you came, so he became obsolete. In this place, I gestured to the strangely cozy basement. Were you planning to lock me up here? She blinked at me, then suddenly laughed. So hard she had to wipe tears from her eyes. You silly boy, she said, reaching out to pinch my cheek. Why would I lock you up? I brought you here to live freely by my side, not to be some bird in a gilded cage. She spread her arms wide. This isn't a prison. It's our home, our sanctuary. It's the place where I can show you just how much I love you. She took my hand and placed it over her heart. Do you feel that, Ethan? It beats for you. From this moment on, everything I have is yours. My money, my company, my body, my heart. She looked deep into my eyes, and for the first time, I saw no trace of madness or obsession. Only love. Vast, raw, and overwhelming. Ethan Vance, she whispered. I love you. Will you stay with me forever, as my partner? I looked at her, this impossible woman who had bent reality itself for me. What else could I say? I leaned down and kissed her, pouring every ounce of shock, fear, and love I had into that moment. My answer didn't need words. 1 year later. Breaking news. The hit thriller series City of Fog, from Sterling Entertainment and breakout writer Ethan Vance, swept the Primetime Emmy Awards last night, winning Outstanding Writing, Outstanding Directing, and Outstanding Drama Series. Sources also confirm that Vance and Sterling Entertainment CEO Isabel Sterling were secretly engaged last month, capping a whirlwind romance for Hollywood's New power couple, the news anchor's cheerful voice played from the flat-screen TV across the room. I was lying, with my head in Isabel's lap as she fed me grapes. Honey, I said lazily. Looks like we're famous. She murmured, slipping another grape into my mouth. Sweet. Very. I smiled up at her. Who would have thought? The random background character had ended up marrying the queen and somehow became king. What are you smiling about? She asked. Just thinking, I said, pulling her close, that I might be the luckiest man in the world. She snuggled against my chest like a contented cat. No, she whispered, lifting her head to give me a soft, lingering kiss. Meeting you was the best luck I ever had. Outside the window, the Chicago skyline glittered. The story of me and my beautifully insane professor was just getting started.